happy to be here, and especially I'm happy to talk after Hertha because she gave such an upbeat speech about a young continent, a growing continent, and now we change to old age. We change to old age. The Swiss Social Security Fund is getting to pension age, approximately my age, pension age, and I think it's time to look back and especially time to look forward. And as with everything what concerns social security, it's rather difficult for each country to understand. The systems are complex, different, and so I will give you a short introduction what it's about. Then the forces of change and adapting, because this is extremely important, I think, for the whole institutional investors to get the setting right, to get the framing right, because we are in a changing world. And my third point, and there I couldn't agree more with what Hertha said, is about corporate governance. Even in a country, democratic country like Switzerland, I think we have to make a lot of progress in corporate governance. So just for the introduction, the overall picture, we rest on 3 pillars. In Switzerland, it's always good to have a diversification. The first pillar is mandatory for everybody. The second are the normal pension fund, a contribution-based system. And the third pillar is optional, is private. It's more or less you have tax benefits with it. And the oldest part was created just after the World War. No material safety existed. The values there were providing minimum pensions for old age widows, which was very important, and the intergenerational solidarity was a principle which was taken on. It's a pay-as-you-go system, so the ones who are employed are caring for the other who are old age or orphans or widows. It's also social classes, it's man and woman. Even if you earn $1 million, you won't get more out of your pension later on when you are 65. It's really some sort of equality system. And also men and women. If the woman doesn't work, then she is due entitled to the pension, provided that the man works. And the funds, which I am the vice president, sits in between those who contribute and the expenses paying rent. Just to look briefly at these 3 systems, you see the signs AES, AI, and APG. These are interconnected. First is the old age insurance, payment of benefits to the elderly people. You are entitled monthly for 3,480 francs for if you are married, and for single it's 2,320. It's not important what you paid in, but you are entitled for this. The only thing is you have to work about 44 years. Then we have an insurance type, invalidity, disability insurance, payment of benefit for disabled people, and we have income compensation for military service. And since 2010 in Switzerland, very, very late, we take our time to do it, also for maternity. And objectives, as I said, are for the pension fund, we sit in between contributions and paying out the rents, which is very, very important. Every 5th of the month you are entitled to have your payout. And we are supposed to invest safely with a reasonable risk-adjusted return. And naturally there are some other things as financial accounting, annual reports, etc. So we have inflows from about 46 billion and outflows also 47 billion. And you can imagine the flows are never in balance, so you need to have some sort of buffer fund fund in between. Besides, the most important part of the contribution comes from the employers and employees, but there is also, because Social Security is taking much more from everybody, the Confederation pays something, there's value-added tax, and also the casino taxes has to pay for old age, and also naturally return of investments. Now I come to my second topic. Since 1948 a lot happens. Driving forces for every social security systems are demographics, economic growth, and what goes on in financial market. You know the pictures of the age pyramid in all developed countries. And you certainly know also what does happen. In the beginning we had 6.5 contributors for one pensioner, more or less now about 3.6 contributors, and we expect, because this we already know, because the young are already born, we know in 2038 we will have 2 contributors for one pensioner. The basic values, once the Swiss pension fund was created, are still shared. We still believe in intergenerational solidarity. We have a broad political consensus that old age should be secured by minimum means of existence. There were several revisions of the law governing the Swiss Social Security, but there was focus on amendment, not a dramatic change. If we look what a fund like us can do to adapt to demographic change, clearly you have to say the responsibility lays with politics. If income is the main base for a pay-as-you-go system, then there's no other way around than to increase contributions in some sort, raise pension aids, percentage of contribution for the funding of alternative fundings, etc., and also naturally more women in the working force. But you can also do something as the board of social security funds. This is to say you have to be extremely transparent and clear in your figures and messages. You have to define critical trigger points. For example, we say, well, our fund assets are reaching a critical point. Politics, you have to react. And as we are in Switzerland, we defined from the board, we said, well, 5 years might be a good horizon for the politicians to react. On too short notice, politicians in general can't react. So we plan all our asset allocation along this 5-year horizon. And if you see next factor, economic growth, you know the pictures going up, going down. And what's important to know is that economic growth and a buffer fund, this is not a very good mix, because if you depend on contribution, if the economy goes down, your contributions go down also. So if we are on a downward trend, we have to be extremely careful what we do with the fund. We learned this lesson the hard way in 2008. As you can see in this red downward bulk, we lost about minus 18%, and then we said, well, we have to change something in our asset allocation, not in our asset allocation, but in the management. We do allocate assets, and we decided to shift to not steer that asset allocation by return, but only by risk.